This is because the elements utter their complaints as with the loudest shouts to their Creator. Not so that they might speak like humans do, but so that they might demonstrate what their oppression is.
Made in the image and likeness of God, Adam and Eve were to have exercised their dominion over the earth with wisdom and love. Instead, they destroyed the existing harmony by deliberately going against the Creator's plan, that is, by choosing to sin. This resulted not only in man's alienation from himself, in death and fratricide, but also in the earth's rebellion against him. The death and resurrection of Christ accomplished the work of reconciling humanity to the Father, who was pleased, through Christ, to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. When man turns his back on the Creator's plan, he provokes a disorder which has inevitable repercussions on the rest of the created order. If man is not at peace with God, then earth itself cannot be at peace. Therefore the land mourns and all who dwell in it languish. And also the beasts of the field and the birds of the air and even the fish of the sea are taken away. The profound sense that the earth is suffering is also shared by those who do not profess our faith in God. Indeed, the increasing devastation of the world of nature is apparent to all. It results from the behavior of people who show a callous disregard for the hidden, yet perceivable requirements of the order and harmony which govern nature itself. In 1979, I proclaimed St. Francis of Assisi as the heavenly patron of those who promote ecology. He offers Christians an example of genuine and deep respect for the integrity of creation. As a friend of the poor who was loved by God's creatures, St. Francis invited all of creation, animals, plants, natural forces, even brother sun and sister moon, to give honor and praise to the Lord. The poor man of Assisi gives us striking witness that when we are at peace with God, we are better able to devote ourselves to building up that peace with all creation, which is inseparable from peace among all peoples.
C'è guerra di interessi, c'è guerra per i soldi, c'è guerra per le risorse della natura. C'è guerra per il dominio dei popoli. Questa è la guerra.
It was so apocalyptic that, at first, it was hard to comprehend.
We're in the heart of what should be the pristine Amazon, and right over our shoulders is a sandstorm. That is just mind-boggling. Hundreds of gold miners were given concessions here, turning this into a vast desert that stretches for mile after mile.
Wind that used to be buffered by thick forest now whips up the sand.
What we're dealing with every year is that these roads keep coming out, and then people cut the rainforest, let it dry out, and then they're burning like this. And this is an entire ecosystem. All these ancient trees, all the wildlife in there is being lost.
Ednemar de Oliveira Viana, a leader of the Satir Maui people in Brazil, and secretary of the Association of Family Farmers of Alto Urupati, and also an agricultural producer, said that many people have died resisting the invasion of their traditional lands. We need to be strong and resilient and work hand in hand. Let's not leave Pope Francis alone in this.
Among Brazil's vested interests and pressure groups, there are few voices raised in the defense of native tribes. Those that are often find they are silenced, as in the wave of murders of activists in 2017.
My predecessor, Benedict XVI, condemned the devastation of the environment and the Amazon basin, and the threats against the human dignity of the peoples living in that region.
Il s'avère nécessaire de revoir totalement notre approche de la nature.
Drawing on the wisdom from his own predecessors, including Pope John Paul II, Pope Leo XIII, and Pope Paul VI, Pope Benedict in his message implored his flock to view climate change and care for creation as an extension of the Church's care for humanity. He also addressed the phenomenon of environmental refugees several years before Pope Francis.
Pope Benedict XVI has just released his message for World Day of Peace. His 2010 theme is, if you want to cultivate peace, protect creation, and the responsibility one has to protect the environment and also change lifestyles. He also referred back to what his predecessor, John Paul II, said in his message 20 years ago, which was, there is a growing awareness world peace is threatened in part by a lack of due respect for nature.
Can we remain indifferent before the problems associated with such realities as climate change, desertification, the deterioration and loss of productivity in vast agricultural areas, the pollution of rivers and aquifers, the loss of biodiversity, the increase of natural catastrophes, and the deforestation of equatorial and tropical regions? Can we disregard the growing phenomenon of environmental refugees, people who are forced by the degradation of their natural habitat to forsake it, and often their possessions as well, in order to face the dangers and uncertainties of forced displacement? Can we remain impassive in the face of actual and potential conflicts involving access to natural resources? All these are issues with a profound impact on the exercise of human rights, such as the right to life, food, health, and development. In the Amazon, small patches of green, protected by local tribes, are all that remain of a once great forest. And in the island of Madagascar, images taken over 30 years shows it has lost almost 80% of its original forest. In the 43rd World Day of Peace 2010, Pope Benedict addressed man's responsibility toward the natural environment. Respect for creation is of immense consequence, not least because creation is the beginning and the foundation of all God's works, and its preservation has now become essential for the pacific coexistence of mankind. Man's inhumanity to man has given rise to numerous threats to peace and to authentic and integral human development: wars, international and regional conflicts, acts of terrorism, and violations of human rights. Yet no less troubling are the threats arising from the neglect, if not downright misuse, of the earth and the natural goods that God has given us. For this reason, it is imperative that mankind renew and strengthen that covenant between human beings and the environment, which should mirror the creative love of God, from whom we come and towards whom we are journeying. In my encyclical Caritas in Veritate, I noted that integral human development is closely linked to the obligations which flow from man's relationship with the natural environment. The environment must be seen as God's gift to all people, and the use we make of it entails a shared responsibility for all humanity, especially the poor and future generations. I also observed that whenever nature, and human beings in particular, are seen merely as products of chance or an evolutionary determinism, our overall sense of responsibility wanes. On the other hand, seeing creation as God's gift to humanity helps us understand our vocation and worth as human beings. Is it not true that what we call nature in a cosmic sense has its origin in a plan of love and truth? The world is not the product of any necessity whatsoever, nor of blind fate or chance. The world proceeds from the free will of God. He wanted to make his creatures share in his being, in his intelligence, and in his goodness. The book of Genesis, in its very first pages, points to the wise design of the cosmos. It comes forth from God's mind and finds its culmination in man and woman, made in the image and likeness of the Creator, to fill the earth and to have dominion over it as stewards of God Himself. The harmony between the Creator, mankind, and the created world, as described by sacred scripture, was disrupted by the sin of Adam and Eve, by man and woman, who wanted to take the place of God and refused to acknowledge that they were His creatures. As a result, the work of exercising dominion over the earth, tilling it and keeping it, was also disrupted, and conflict arose within and between mankind and the rest of creation. The work of exercising dominion over the earth, tilling it and keeping it, was also disrupted, and conflict arose within and between mankind and the rest of creation. Human beings let themselves be mastered by selfishness. They misunderstood the meaning of God's command and exploited creation out of a desire to exercise absolute domination over it. But the true meaning of God's original command, as the book of Genesis clearly shows, was not a simple conferral of authority, but rather a summons to responsibility. The wisdom of the ancients had recognized that nature is not at our disposal as a heap of scattered refuse. Biblical revelation made us see that nature is a gift of the Creator, who gave it an inbuilt order and enabled man to draw from it the principles needed to till it and keep it. Everything that exists belongs to God, who has entrusted it to man, albeit not for his arbitrary use. Once man, instead of acting as God's co-worker, sets himself up in place of God, he ends up provoking a rebellion on the part of nature, which is more tyrannized than governed by him. Man thus has a duty to exercise responsible stewardship over creation, to care for it and to cultivate it. Sad to say, it is all too evident that large numbers of people in different countries and areas of our planet are experiencing increased hardship because of the negligence or refusal of many others to exercise responsible stewardship over the environment. The Second Vatican Ecumenical Council reminded us that God has destined the earth and everything it contains for all peoples and nations. The goods of creation belong to humanity as a whole. Yet the current pace of environmental exploitation is seriously endangering the supply of certain natural resources not only for the present generation, but above all for generations yet to come.